It was a cold winter night in 1998 when veteran truck driver Jack Wallace found himself hauling cargo from New Mexico to Texas along the desolate stretch of Highway 40. The road was eerily quiet, the stars hidden behind thick clouds, and the only sound was the rumbling of his 18-wheeler against the pavement. Jack had been driving for nearly a decade, and he had heard his fair share of trucker ghost stories, phantom hitchhikers, haunted rest stops, and shadowy figures lurking along the highways. But he had never believed in any of it. That night, however, his skepticism would be put to the ultimate test at exactly 13 a.m. as Jack was making his way through a particularly isolated stretch of highway. He spotted something unusual ahead, a woman standing on the side of the road. She was barefoot, dressed in a thin, flowing white dress that fluttered in the icy wind. Her hair was long and disheveled, and her skin was pale, almost to pale. Jack instinctively slowed the truck. "What the hell is she doing out here in the middle of nowhere?" he muttered under his breath. As he got closer, he noticed something even stranger. The woman wasn't shivering, despite the near-freezing temperatures. She stood motionless, her arms hanging limply by her sides, as though the cold didn't affect her. Jack hesitated, but then decided to pull over. He rolled down the window and leaned out. "Mum, do you need help?" he called. For a moment there was silence. Then, slowly, she lifted her head. Jack's breath caught in his throat. Her eyes were hollow, dark voids that seemed to swallow all light. Before Jack could react, the passenger door of his truck creaked open on its own. The woman climbed into the seat without a word. Every instinct in Jack's body screamed at him to run, but his hands stayed frozen on the wheel. His pulse thundered in his ears as he glanced at her. She sat completely still, her hands resting on her lap, staring straight ahead. Jack swallowed hard. "Where are you headed?" he finally managed to ask. No response. Instead, the radio suddenly hissed with static. The temperature inside the cab dropped drastically. Jack gripped the wheel tighter. "Ma'am, I don't know what's going on, but if you need help, you have to talk to me." Still nothing. And then, in the reflection of the windshield, he saw something that made his stomach lurch. Her lips were moving, but no sound was coming out. Suddenly, the truck veered violently to the right, as if something unseen had grabbed the wheel. Jack yelled and struggled to regain control, his heart hammering in his chest. As he fought to straighten the truck, he chanced another glance at the woman. She was gone, but before relief could set in, he noticed something in his side mirror. A figure was crawling on the back of the truck. Its limbs were grotesquely long, fingers splayed unnaturally as it clung to the side of the trailer. Its face was pressed against the window of the sleeper cab, grinning. And then a voice whispered directly into his ear, "You shouldn't have stopped." Jack slammed on the brakes. The truck screeched to a halt, and he threw open the door, stumbling out onto the icy pavement. Ahead, through the fog, he saw a flickering neon sign, "Miller's Motel Vacancy." Desperate, he sprinted towards the building and burst through the front doors. An elderly woman sat behind the counter, looking up at him with mild interest. Jack, panting, leaned against the desk. "Please call the police. Someone was in my truck." The old woman squinted at him. "You saw her, didn't you?" Jack blinked. What?" She sighed and shook her head. "You're not the first, son. Won't be the last either." She gestured towards the wall behind her. Jack turned and felt the blood drain from his face. There, tacked to the wall, was a yellowed newspaper clipping. Young woman killed on Highway 40. Driver never stopped to help. Beneath the headline was a grainy black and white photo of a woman. The same woman Jack had picked up. His head spun. He turned back to the old woman, his throat dry. But she was in that truck. I saw her. She whispered to me. The old woman nodded grimly. She does that. Looking for the one who left her behind. Looking for someone to stay with her forever. Jack left that night without another word. He quit his job the next morning and never drove long haul again. But other truckers on Highway 40 tell stories. Some say they've seen a woman standing alone in the dead of night, waiting. Others claim to hear whispers on their CB radios, a soft, mournful voice calling out, "Will you stop for me?" A few swear they've glimpsed a pair of empty, black eyes watching from their rearview mirror, and sometimes, just sometimes, one of them never reaches their destination. Would you stop if you saw her? Have you ever experienced anything like this? Subscribe for more real horror stories. If you're ever driving alone at night and you see a lone woman on the road, keep driving.